Warning, this channel documents a legal medical marijuana grow. Everything is solely informational and for documentation purposes. Robsreviews does not encourage any illegal activities of any kind and is not suitable for all ages. If you're over 18, you're okay. If not, please do not watch this video.
What's up everyone, and welcome to this exciting video. Before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to all of our sponsors, VIVOSUN, Grow Ace, and Spider Farmer. If without them this video would not be possible. If you guys would like to check them out, go ahead and check the links in the description. You'll find some awesome coupon codes to give you guys a discount on these items, and you can get started with your own grow today. So you guys can tell by the title, this video is about the Grow Ace AIRCUBE system, hydroponic system that's designed to make it effortless when growing in hydroponic. Check it out. This is what the boxes look like when you first receive it. The very first thing that I set up was the reservoir system. The reservoir system consists of several different parts, some risers, some valves, and some mounting plates for the valve. So what I did is go ahead and reach in, grab the mounting plate for the valve, unscrewed it, and as you can see, it's not lefty-loosey, it's righty-loosey, lefty-tighty. And the reason being is because once you go ahead and screw the valve on and you're tightening it up, it's not going to loosen the mounting plate and cause leaks. So what you want to do is make sure there's a gasket on each side when you're mounting this inside of this reservoir. So make sure you grab those pieces out and let's get started. Once you've got those pieces out, go ahead and find the hole that's designed to mount this valve. It's down there in the bottom. There's only one hole there, so it's easy to find. And then what you're going to want to do is go ahead and take the mounting plate, the flat surface part with the gasket on it, and mount it on the front, outside front of this reservoir while twisting counterclockwise to tighten the valve and the mounting plate together from the inside. Make sure you hand tighten it quite well so that way you're not left with any leaks. And once we got it all assembled, it's ready to go. Next thing we're going to work on is going to be the risers to help create the uniform of this reservoir. And there it is, it's mounted, you guys. Easy enough. Last thing is to put the valve on. It's a little tricky to show you guys inside of this, but I'm going to go ahead and try it as best as possible. So we screwed it on. Again, make sure when you tighten this up, you're holding the inside. That way you don't loosen the mounting plate. Inside you'll find several holes, but you want to find the holes with a little drop in them. Go ahead and grab your unions for your riser poles. You should have 6 riser poles and 3 unions that connect the riser poles together. First step is to go ahead and put a union on each one of the riser poles. Once you get the unions in there, you're going to want to take the foam covers off of the cap assembly for the riser poles and go ahead and find the empty holes in the bottom. You'll find 3 of them, at least for the 25-gallon reservoir system, which is what we're running. And then once you find them in there and you put those in there, you're going to want to grab the other risers, the other 3 risers, place them through the top as you're connecting them to the other side of the union that we placed on the previous poles. When doing this, just be sure that you try to keep them in the holes in the bottom so that way they don't move on you. That's one of the troubles I had. You know, I was new to it, but I went ahead and figured it out. Once we had the rising poles in there and situated, it was a lot easier to go ahead and screw the caps on. And what I did is I screwed each cap on partially, not too tight, not too loose. That way I can get it to stand up on its own and go around and prevent the other ones from falling as I'm putting it together. So we just went ahead and tightened up all the screws, or the caps, should we call them, on these riser poles, making sure that, again, the other end of these poles are sitting in the hole. And when you do that, you're going to have a sturdy 25-gallon reservoir ready to go. The next thing we're going to go ahead and unbox is the brain. Now, in the brain, you're going to find hoses, you're going to find pumps, you're going to find a few things that you're going to need in order for this whole system to work. It could seem complicated at first, but please do not get discouraged, you guys. This is easier than what it looks. So once we got it open, you're going to notice that there are a couple foam pads guarding the wires, which is awesome to prevent any breakage or any tears or any kind of faulty systems. Everything was packaged really well. Lid came off easily. And let's just go ahead and take everything out of the brain. First off, you're gonna find some T's and also some connectors, all 3/4 inch. And we'll talk about what those are for here soon. Next thing, we're gonna find a run of some 3/4 inch hose. We're gonna go ahead and set that aside. Let's go out and pull out one of the submersible pumps. This unit comes with 2 submersible pumps, one for the brain and one for the reservoir, and we'll get into what each one of those do. And everything you need is in that box, including the suction cups that holds them to the bottom. So after you got everything out, this is kind of what it looks like. There's a timer on the front, and we'll talk more about the timer and the functions of the timer, what's recommended, the automatic and the manual watering on there. So we got the brain set aside, we've got everything pulled out of it, I've got the lid on it. The next thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and find the rubber plugs, and we're going to place the 2 rubber plugs on each side of this brain. Here's what the rubber plugs look like. Now when you're placing the rubber plugs into these holes, you're going to want to just go ahead and fill the 2 back holes that are furthest away from the brain or the timer in the front, which will leave only 2 holes open, one on each side, closest to the brain. Then you're going to want to find your rubber grommets and go ahead and place those in the holes in the top and place the hose unions through those, and they'll mount right up against those. The rubber grommets on the side were already there. Some people may receive them without them being there before we put the plugs in there, so you're going to want to make sure those are in there too. But that's what it's going to look like when it's all said and done. Now let's go ahead and grab one of the submersible pumps. There's going to be a lot of confusion on these pumps. All these pumps are the same thing. There's not one that sucks in or one that blows out. They're both identical. It doesn't matter which one you grab. What matters the most is where you put them on this, on the top connectors there. So go ahead and screw on your 3/4 inch plastic, and that's what we're going to connect a hose to. There are also suction cups that you place on the bottom of the pumps, and that way it'll suck to the bottom. So once we got that going, let's go ahead and take the lid off. We'll place the pump. I got the suction cups on the bottom so they can sit secure and snug. Let's go ahead and make sure we move the cord off to the side. There's a special little gap there for it to fit. And we've got the pump down in the bottom. Now let's grab a piece of the rubber hose, place it on that 3/4 inch spout, and we want to cut it to length to where we can actually insert it to the bottom of one of those riser unions in the lid. And as you can see, the riser closest to the cord is where I have a hose from the pump going into the bottom of that. All right, it's very important. Next, we're going to go ahead and plug it in where it says drain. This is going to actually be our drain pump. Our fill pump is going to go in the reservoir, and we'll go over that here soon. Now here's the second submersible pump. Assemble it the same way we did the other one, grabbing your rubber suction cups right there, placing those into the bottom of the pump, and screwing on your 3/4 inch stem at the very top. Suck it to the bottom, and just go ahead and dangle the cord off to the side temporarily. And then what we're going to do is grab another run of the hose and run it from the top of the pump into the other valve stem coming out of the top of the brain. Remember, we had a valve stem with the submersible pump in the brain that goes into one of the spouts, and then our other submersible pump is just going to be connected to the other spout. And that's all there is to it, you guys. So once you get it in there, get it connected, go ahead and cut it to make sure. Actually, I take that back. Before we cut it, this is a very important step. We have to poke a hole into the hose and create an air gap. That way there's no siphoning effect going back into your reservoir and the system runs correctly. So once you got that, go ahead and push your pump to the bottom, suction cup it to the bottom of the reservoir, just like that. And then the next step is going to take your scissors. I found scissors are the best thing to use on this, you guys. I tried razor blades, I've tried everything, and I kept losing my scissors. But we got the scissors, and that spout I pointed to isn't the spout we had the other pump hooked to. So we're gonna hook this one to the spout that has nothing hooked to it. There we go. So now all we have is a hose coming from a pump from the reservoir into that spout, and on the other spout underneath we have a hose going into another pump, and then from the top we have that going back into our reservoir because that is where our drain is. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that this hose can reach the bottom of the reservoir, cut it off, and drop it right into the reservoir. So now we have our drain and our fill pumps all connected, ready to go, as well as our air gap so there's no siphoning. Go ahead and plug it in to where it says fill, and we can move on to the next step, you guys. Next step is going to be grabbing all 6 of your 5-gallon pots. You got a few of the rubber grommets, and we also have some T's and also some 90-degree elbows. I didn't have to use any 90-degree elbows. I was tempted to, but I found it a lot easier just to not use those. Less cuts. You may find a little bit of cardboard from packaging, which is normal. Be sure to take that out because you don't want any kind of debris, dirt, cardboard, plastic. You know, these things are probably machine milled in a factory, and the deburring process could be extensive. So make sure there's no green plastic, no cardboard, no debris, no dirt. You don't want any clogs. Next step we want to do is take our rubber grommets. There's 6 pots, so we got 6 grommets, and we're going to go ahead and insert those into the holes in the bottom of the pots. As you can see, I flipped the pots upside down. That way it's easier to work with. I couldn't imagine doing this right side up. So once we got all the grommets in there, go ahead and put your T's in the direction that I have my T's put into the system. And the reason why they're all parallel to each other, or running with each other, is because we're going to be running hoses from each one of those pots to the next in a circle. So it's a circular pattern that the pump is going to run water through this thing. So just like that, you guys, is what it should look like until we move on to the next step, which is adding the hose. So I started with the furthest one to the right, and I got some hose, kind of just eyeballed where it's going to connect. And when you do that, just make sure you give it enough hose to butt up against the middle of that T. That way you have good spacing, you guys. Just like that. So we got one. We're going to do that with all remaining pots. And it's really simple. This is probably the fastest thing as far as this whole assembly process. And you got that one cut. Now with the back side, what I did is I connected the 2 pots by running kind of like a U from that one of the back pots around to the other side of the other back pot on the other side. Once you do that, you continue your lateral running the hose, and you should look something like this. Now all I did was flip the buckets upside down. I didn't flip from one side to the other. I literally just turned it since those hoses were circular. They just flipped right over. And now we want to take another run of hose and make sure we connect it into one of the 2 spouts on the brain. I chose the right side. Then we're going to take another run of hose to the other side of the pots and cut it to fit and tap into the other side of the brain, which makes a big circle of hoses with 6 pots in between and a brain in between on the other side. And it's as simple as that, you guys. Once you do that, go ahead and fill your reservoir with water. Do not turn it on without water being in there. You could destroy your pumps. And it should start to fill up. I did have a little bit of an issue with them filling up to begin with, but it was such an easy fix. It was kind of drizzling at first, but what I actually did is lifted my brain up to create more gravitational force, and it literally just started flooding those pots so much faster than what it did when I just barely first plugged it in. And as you guys can see there, the water should be lowering in the reservoir, filling up the brain in the front, and in return filling up the pots. Now you're going to find 2 little tiny white floaties inside of this hatch here, and those 2 black pillars right there with the floaties connected to it with the white wires. That's going to determine how full your pots are going to be. Now don't be afraid to touch that sensor there, you guys. There's a rail. Those 2 black risers are rails that this unit slides up and down on. If you see your pot starting to get a little too full, go ahead and push those rails down as fast as you can to stop the water from flowing, and you'll notice the water just stop. If you want them to be a little fuller, go ahead and lift the risers, and that'll give the sensors the idea, hey, we're not full yet. And once the water touches those sensors, it stops filling up those buckets. Now it's good to do a dry run to make sure you don't have any leaks, and also making sure that these buckets are going to fill evenly, and you might find a little bit of more debris from when the water's washing up. Just go ahead and make sure you take that out. Now once it's all said and done, it worked flawlessly. Like I said, I just have to lift a brain to create some more gravitational force, and I gave it a couple test runs. Next thing I did is figured out the actual dial on the front, because I want everything automated. There is a switch on the very front of this brain, and it's a red switch, and up means fill. So if you flip that switch up, no matter what part of the cycle it's in, it's going to start filling your buckets up until it gets to those floaties. If you bring that switch down, it will actually start to drain your buckets. And it's as simple as that, you guys. This is a pretty simple design, and it's a pretty amazing innovation. All right, you guys, so before we end this video, I'm going to give you guys kind of a live view of this system running, flipping switches, things like that. But before we do that, let's take a look at the front of this. So as I mentioned before, you're going to take this cap off. There is a manual fill right here. When you flip it up, it'll fill it. There's a manual drain. These pins set right here are all 15-minute intervals. When they are furthest away from the circle, that just means that it's going to be on. That is the fill. So every one of these little switches you see popped up are actually what is going to be my fill cycle. Now each one of these pins are 15 minutes apiece, so if you see you're late into flower and you need lots and lots of water, you can even go to 30 minutes by flipping the next one here. Coco Core recommends every 3 to 5 hours to fill and drain, and I'm going to start with 15 minutes intervals, and if I have to go up from there, then I'm going to go up. You guys are going to want to stay tuned to see and have some troubleshooting firsthand before you guys actually get your system. But when you do decide to buy your system, don't forget to check out the coupon code and save you guys quite a bit of money. But let's go ahead and flip the switch on this bad boy and watch it run. So right now, the reservoir is going to be filling up. And I have the floaters pretty low, and you can see the buckets are actually starting to fill up as well. Now just imagine this smart bucket, I'll call it, or the brain, as one of these buckets. Just imagine that. And let's imagine we have these floaties right there. So these floaties are literally about, I'd say, a third of the way up the bucket. That means the water in these buckets are going to be a third of the way. So these are replicas that imitate the water capacity in this actual brain and just fills it up as we need. So we are going to be running an awesome light in this tent. You guys are going to want to stay tuned and check out the unboxing video on that. But I do appreciate you guys tuning in to Rob's Reviews. We will see you on the next video, and thanks for watching.